Like you can be taught whatever at university, you can be taught, anything at school, but from actual practice and observation, it's a completely different thing.
All right, welcome to the Aussie Ambitions podcast. We're excited to have another guest with us today. Her name's Debby Lo-Dean. Welcome, Debbie. How are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Excellent, excellent. So this is on the theme of ambitions and hearing a little bit about life stories here in Australia. You've got a lot of different areas of experience, and really we just touch on a few of them here today. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, so I was born on the Gold Coast, and for anyone that doesn't know the Gold Coast, we're sort of an hour down from Brisbane. Brisbane is our capital city in Queensland. I was born here. I was brought up in Cavill Avenue, and anyone who knows the Gold Coast, Cavill Avenue is like the main street of Surfers Paradise. My family had my grandfather was what partners one of the first Chinese restaurants on the Gold Coast, and then he built a standalone building himself in Cavill Avenue. So I was brought up in flats above the restaurant in Cavill Avenue, 57 Cavill Avenue, and we were next door to a place called El Rancho, which was a steak restaurant for anyone that remembers that. And then it became Bombay Rock. So all the big brands like or bands like Cold Chisel and all those guys from back then used to play there. It was an interesting childhood, I would say.
I would say. I mean, that's going to be, you mentioned some names. The Cold Chisel, famous Australian band from the day.
Angels, all those guys played there, yeah.
And so, wow, so that's going to be a unique perspective, I think, because there's still a lot of people that are moving here in recent times. Is that fair to say? Do you see still a bit of migration from other cities coming and settling on the Gold Coast? Is that
It's
a
growing
trend?
every year. So basically, everything from my childhood, because I grew up in Cavill Avenue, is no longer there because we're a young city. It's growing continuously. It's changing. It's moving. People coming, and we have obviously our tourism industry that molds part of our city, but we're just not just tourism. It's growing. It's a really interesting city because we're between the ocean and the mountains. Like the mountains are only half an hour one way and the beach is 10 minutes the other way. So it's a very interesting city we have. It's a very linear city, so it's a very long city. Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, you mentioned beach and mountains. Are you located closer to one or the other? Like, where do you live?
I'm sort of central. I would say I'm about 10 minutes to the beach and then maybe 20 minutes to the mountains. So it's
So easy access either way.
easy access both ways.
Yeah. Would you say that there's traffic here?
It's growing. The traffic is growing very much so, and we need to look at that infrastructure wise. I don't think when this Gold Coast Surfers Paradise was first started that it was made for so many people. Back in the old days, it was actually we were a logging place for logging, and then we had sand mining. I remember as a child. Tourism was also always a part of it, but it's just grown exponentially. We have 3 universities for our little town, so it's quite amazing how we've changed.
That's I do feel it's a luxury. Again, seeing what other cities have in terms of learning opportunities and infrastructure, and so life is good here. So if you can get here, definitely
come visit.
come visit. One thing, there's a few things I was hoping to cover today, and one of them is your experience with innovation and just there's a wave of, I guess, new entrepreneurs, people that are starting for the first time. I think a lot of listeners would be from that space. And you've done some things over the years, and you've actually got something new cooking as well.
Yes.
So can you take us through maybe what you're working on today?
So we've just launched 4 weeks ago a new gin made on the Gold Coast. It's not a normal thing for someone to do is to start their own gin, but during this year it's been difficult for everyone, and we've had to adapt. My husband's always worked in the liquor industry, and it was time for us to have our own product. and we researched it, and we spent 2 full days actually experimenting, and it's a bit of a science. Any alcohol is a bit of a science, and you have all these botanicals that you have in front of you, and you have to, have measurements and different measurements so that they balance one another. It's all about balance to for any alcohol.
Yeah. So we can get a shot of the label. Are we able to say the name?
Yes, certainly, Paradise Gin. So again, I was brought up in Surfers Paradise, so we called it Paradise Gin, and also our restaurant, the dining room, was called the Paradise Dragon Room. So it's very much part of my childhood. And even the picture, if you have a look at the picture, it's a couple by the pool. And when I was young, we had a babysitter that used to take us to all, illegally, take us to all the resorts and hotels in Surface, Chevron Hotel and Tiki Village and different hotels, and we would go swimming in their pools. So I wanted to bring that back, and a bit of the glamour from that time. This is sort of from the 60s, with the pool in the background and the palm trees. We used to have palm trees down the Esplanade, and just bring a bit of luxury back to our everyday lives.
That's yeah, it's definitely got an interesting vintage feel to it, in terms of labeling. And the product itself, though, like, is that something? Are Aussies big gin drinkers? Is there something about the gin and not maybe another type of liquor?
Yeah, it's the trend at the moment. I think you sort of have to look at the trends. Australia's always been known to be big beer drinkers, but the tastes have changed over the years. Vodka was very popular for a while, but with gin, we find that we have so many different botanicals that we can add to it to make it completely different. So our gin is so different to, say, a Gordon's gin or a Bombay Sapphire. It's quite unique in its own. So that's what we like to see.
That's so it's really a good example of perhaps having an opportunity and then pursuing it. I think a lot of things we want to encourage for the listeners and viewers are, do you have an idea and can you get it to that first level of first milestone, so you're closer to your end goal? With something like this, was this, you mentioned you had some industry experience, but was this a long time coming? Like, was it a project that you had in the back of your mind and you finally kicked it off? Or did it all come out of necessity and saying, look, if there's a particular opportunity, now's the time?
Yeah, so a bit of both. I've been saying to my husband for many, many years, we need our own product. We were looking at wine at one stage, but we had a massive 3/4 of Australia was on fire at the beginning of the year, which was amazing, and a lot of our vineyards were actually, the smoke either burnt or the fruit was affected by the smoke. So we sort of scrapped that idea, and then COVID came, and we basically needed to adapt, and the opportunity came up to distill an alcohol, and we decided to do the gin first. Later down the track, we might do a vodka, a rum, a whiskey. A whiskey will be the last because we have to settle it for at least minimum of 2 years, up to 30. You can get 15-year-old whiskey and 30-year-old whiskey, so that would probably be the last one. But the gin is just, the turnaround time is really quick. I think the most important thing was actually getting the recipe right. And I had this idea of, I want all our products to have a really Australian theme to it. So we looked at, different Indigenous fruits that would go well with this. And Kakadu plum, which is from Arnhem Land up in northern Queensland, or Northern Territory, I should say. There is Kakadu plum in northern Queensland as well. It's the fruit with the highest vitamin C of any fruit. It looks like, it's only a tiny little plum. It looks like a little olive, and it's green, but it also turns yellow.
And is it healthy? It sounds like it might be almost
It's
healthy.
very healthy for you as well. So our fruit that we have in our gin when we make it is actually the frozen fruit. You can buy the powdered form, but it's just not the same. So there's 2 ways to make gin. You can either actually steep it in your base alcohol, or you can steam it, and we actually put it in. So we soaked our botanicals overnight in our base alcohol. So there's 2 types of base alcohol you can have. One is a grain base and one is a grape base. So we use the grape base because it's softer, but it's also for anyone that has problems with gluten. Like, well, ours is grape, not grain. And it's a softer one. So you soak the botanicals overnight, and then and that's when you distill it, and then you boil it up to about 80 degrees, and then the vapor goes up, it distills, condenses, and then you've got your gin.
That's a good deep dive on the product process, I think, and maybe one thing to mention would be what I hear of when people have ideas and they're looking to start out. Sometimes they keep everything to themselves. They don't want to share that idea or bring too many people in on it for fear that someone might copy it or take that idea and run with it. Would this be an example where there's a bit of a secret recipe that you need to keep tight and well managed so that it isn't copied, that kind of thing? Was there any consideration to that?
Our recipe isn't complex. I wouldn't. It's not it. I think we want to keep the main recipe. Like, I don't want to tell people everything because it's part of the mystery of the gin. But obviously, Kakadu plum takes up 40% of our recipe, and it's unique to us. Other people, I guess, they could try to copy it if they want to, but it won't be theirs.
Yeah, I was just thinking about sometimes suppliers, again, thinking about the other entrepreneurs that might be creating a product and they need to source raw ingredients, or, sometimes there's a level of partnership there. In terms of where this is, like the raw materials, is there a farm? Like, is it hard to get some of these items? Like the raw materials for the distilling process?
Well, we had the master distiller source all that for us.
Nice.
So that's in Queensland. We have the Queensland Distillers Association, and it's a small knit group. So people don't tend to try and upset other people because otherwise, you're going to be falling out with everyone. So you want to, if you can collaborate, sure, why not? I've actually got an event coming up, hopefully, which I can't say right now, but it'll be a pretty cool event for the first time to bring all our Queensland distillers together, hopefully, and to get them to showcase what we make in Queensland, because you go into a bar, a restaurant, a hotel right now, and that we should have a Queensland gin, we should have a Queensland vodka, we should have a Queensland, well, we probably, nearly everyone has Bundaberg rum, but we should have our own products on the shelves. So I have this idea to bring everyone together to actually showcase that. So I'm very much, that's my type of personality, is I'm a collaborative person. I've never really had anyone try to steal my ideas, I don't think, because they probably think it's all too hard.
Fair point. Absolutely. I mean, and I like that you mentioned the collaboration aspect. That was something we're looking to do a bit of research on to see just what's the startup environment like in Australia, and you might have some more experience with that. But generally, you get a good feel of collaboration, whether it's from your suppliers or even maybe distribution partners.
It has to be. It has to. You have to collaborate. We were so surprised this year because we sourced the labeling, the printing, the boxes, the bags, everything locally, and these small businesses they're working so hard, but they're doing quite well over COVID because people are staying home. They're looking for local suppliers, but the thing is, the turnaround time is so quick. Like, you try and get something made overseas and you're waiting there, on the ships. And, we've had the dockers go on strike only a couple of months ago. So you've got stuff on the docks, and also, with COVID, it's been difficult. But we're getting local suppliers to make printing labels, and it's like a couple of days and they're ready, and you're going, oh, okay, we have to go pick them up. It's just been amazing. I think the Gold Coast community is really thriving. Even though we've had a downturn in tourism and people are struggling, our small manufacturing and our small businesses are actually doing okay.
That's a good point about the buying local. Obviously, tough year so far. Everyone's kind of put in that panic mode, rethinking, having to navigate what they're going to be working on. But
Yeah.
so you're seeing a big shift of buy local
Yeah,
across the industry?
buy local, and also the adaptation of technology. I think, especially the restaurants. Restaurants are taking, most of them now have order online, and all those industries are helping with, QR codes, with the contact tracing and all that. With marketing, how people market is different. It's sort of pushed technology along a lot faster than it would have in the past. I was going off topic a little bit, because I'm on a few community committees, and just our hospital system. I was talking to one of the doctors was speaking at one of our events, and he was saying, with the advent of COVID, things have moved to telehealth a lot quicker. It probably would have taken 10 years for us to change to telehealth, where people ring up and get, diagnosed over the phone and get prescriptions and etc. over the phone. And just the communication through Zoom, when you introduce something into a major industry, it generally, it goes from committee to committee to committee to committee, and, well, let's see if this works and see if that works. Well, they were forced to do it, basically. They were forced to do it this year. And, it's really pushed technology. And I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing, because it's actually helped with communication, not just locally, but internationally.
Yeah, and I guess that's interesting to see what the contrast is versus other countries. But I think everyone in the world's kind of seen that, 10 years of basically technology leap or adoption in about 6 months.
Yeah.
So good on everyone for hanging in there. It's like not easy to, but it's a good test to the system, and sometimes stress. Maybe that's a theme, but stress is an opportunity, right? There's good stress and stress of you're having to force renew and force innovation. So,
but I would say in the innovation arena, most people are about helping one another. Like that's been my experience, because generally when you go into developing a new product, you want to do it for the reason of you want to do something good for the community, for whatever. And so people will help you if you ask. And if you see someone that needs help, then you just do it. You don't think about it. It's just a thing that you do, because in the innovation space, people really struggle. It's not, to start anything, it's not easy and it's not simple. You have to put in the hard yards. You have to put in a lot of hours, and people understand that the work you have to put in. So they will help you if you ask.
The just back on the gin product, is that something that represents a larger vision? So for example, would there be is this just the beginning where you'd grow this into a larger portfolio?
Yes, absolutely. I already have ideas in my head for things that I want. And again, I mentioned that, later on there's, vodka, rum, whiskey, coffee liqueur. It could be basically anything in the future. But obviously you need to start somewhere. So this is our start.
Okay. And you mentioned a bit of that community feel, or others benefiting from your efforts. In this case, you could potentially be growing the opportunity to hire people, or bring other people along on the journey. What's the journey look like for you? Like, are you an employer now? Do you have other people that work for you or with you?
So we work with other people. So obviously we outsource a lot of all the printing and labeling so this picture here, I did a quick sketch of what I had in my mind. And then my father-in-law is an artist, so I got him to actually paint that. We have the original in our house. So that was a collaboration. Use your families, people. If you're going to start a business, use the people around you to help you, because they're there already. Yeah.
That sounds like a good test of. Well, I guess they could be your early customers. Let's say maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
get them to test it and see if they're, because it's it's not a cheap thing to start a new business, but if you've got people there, friends, family that are willing to, try some gin. But whatever it is, get them to help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned perhaps the startup cost in something like this. Again, just trying to paint the picture that for people that are looking to start on a journey, entrepreneurship, starting something, create a product, create a service, do an online company, where does this sit in terms of investment? It would seem probably significant. Is there an upfront?
You've got a budget. So for anyone out there, if you have a great idea, the most important thing is to budget. You need to have a plan. Don't go into anything without having a plan, and don't go. You can. So I would say in the last 10 years, it's so much easier to start your own business, because before you had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertising, whatever. Now you've got, social media. There's a lot of programs now where you can create your own flyers, like Canva or whatever. And if you don't use the premium package, then it's free. Starting your own website is not that expensive anymore. Before it was thousands of dollars. Now you could probably set it up for 25, and then you've got your ongoing fees. But a lot of stuff now, because of technology, is pretty much all on your phone. You can do it almost instantaneously. It may not be super slick, but I don't think people really want super slick anymore. They're happy to have a bit of reality, have a bit of roughness to it, and going, oh, well, I can do that too.
Nice. Absolutely support that. We're trying to represent that here as well. And just staying active and just being in that space, it tends to open up doors for lots of things. So just getting a bit of traction, that's probably a startup word, but that traction, doing something, demonstrate that you're...
Have a go. Like if you have an idea in your head for some marketing, like people say, oh, I know nothing about marketing, but generally you'll have some idea of what you want. And even if you can't draw, you can generally do a bit of a sketch, even if it's stick people, and do a bit of a sketch, and then you can show someone else and going, well, this is my idea. How can we expand on that? So don't be afraid to experiment.
Mm-hmm. So this is a good example. You've actually brought the finished product here, and that's a lot further than a lot of other people get to. That's almost ready to launch. Is that so?
We've launched. We were launched 4 weeks ago, and we're actually in 4 weeks. We've now in 14 outlets. So Gold Coast, Northern New South Wales, and Brisbane.
Okay, so now
a lot of time on the road for my husband.
And was there a moment of celebration there? That's what we're interested to hear. Is it when you reach that moment where you would have said, okay, we've got the product, it's now everyone's buying it and bring it into the store. Do you celebrate at that point?
We celebrated at the launch. So I brought together, a lot of friends and people that we knew, and some people that we haven't known for a long time. But the feeling of that night, of that launch, everyone said to me it was like a family celebration, and that's exactly what I want. That's what when I put things on Facebook or whatever, I like to have people with my product rather than just the product, because it's about, like, we wouldn't exist without our customers, and we wouldn't exist without the outlets that support us. So we want to support them as well. We want to bring them into our family. We want to hear feedback, whether it's good or bad, and we can improve on it. If it is bad, we can improve on it. If it's good, then that's even better. But so far it's been good, and a lot of support, and thank you to you guys for reaching out. It's been amazing, actually, the support from the local community and elsewhere.
So that's great, and I think that's definitely to be commended, to get that product launched and it's underway, and now the demand will be coming if it's not already. So what does that force you into a mode where you're shifting gears, and maybe you need to think more about production and scalability? Yes. And all of that?
So with production and scalability, our Australian taxes are very high here. So for alcohol, it's up to 42-something% tax. So we've really got to budget, really, really have to budget, because we're paying before we've even received money, from the stores. So we're we're doing it a step by step, micro steps. We're not going into the big liquor houses like in Australia, BWS, Dan Murphy's, whatever. We want to stay independent for now because we want to grow it slowly. There's so many, you hear about all these stories about, this startup's gotten $2 million funding and whatever. That's great if you have the infrastructure for that. But for us, I think we want to grow it slowly because we want to get. We need to go over the bumps in the road and know that we can sort it out and problem solve rather than having a massive problem at the end and going, oh my God, what do we do now? I think for us, it's a gradual step-by-step process.
That's good to hear. The one that pops into mind is the Elon Musk story about the Model 3 and production hell that he talks about. But,
Yeah.
Sometimes, obviously, he knew it would get to that point and he just had to crunch time and get through it. Are there people that you follow as a source of inspiration or a bit of a learning? Like, are you an expert in making products and bringing them into market, or is this a new journey for you?
This is a fairly new thing, but I do help consult with different people on, because my background is innovation, but it's also marketing and business, which I studied at university. And it's also from observation more than anything. Like, you can be taught whatever at university, you can be taught, anything at school, but from actual practice and observation, it's a completely different thing. And it's different between cultures. It's different even between a big city and a small city. The people on the Gold Coast, you have, even as I said before, we're a linear city, and you have different interests in people in different areas. So it's really, I think for me, it's really interesting to watch and observe and see where the trends are and see how you can overcome problems by watching other people overcome problems. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned, just overcoming the problems. And that's one of the things I definitely would, if we've got some examples, I'd love to hear from that, just how you overcame them, and it might be related to this product or it might be something else, but
it's called grit. I think with any problem is just keep going until you get where you want to go, because there will be problems. I guarantee you there will be problems. But just try and stay positive. And it's important to have, again, friends and family that support you, because there will be times where you go, oh my God, what am I doing? How am I going to get through this? I've had no sleep. I've had 2 hours sleep.
That's awesome. How much fun is in the business? Just curious. How much of the daily mix of things is just a bit of joy and a bit of, you enjoy what's going on?
So what I enjoy is hearing people go, I like when people try it for the first time and I'm going, oh, I'm not a gin drinker. And then they try it and I'm going, oh, well, actually, this is okay. I can imagine myself on a hot day with a gin and tonic and some ice. And, they've never been into gin and tonic in their lives. And they're going, yeah, I can really see myself drinking this.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And also I'm the type of person that, again, I was talking about, being collaborative and coming up with ideas. They're marketing ideas, but they're also ideas to collaborate with other people and have some fun. And I love that sort of thing, creating an event. I love. So it was very much for our launch. Our friends offered us the rooftop of a building next to Hoda, which is an art centre, overlooking the river with the Surfers Paradise skyline in the background. And I'm going, yeah, that's perfect. So it's just creating almost a scene. And your product is the centre of it, and that's what I love doing.
Yeah. Just hearing the story, I find it interesting that you were born here and
Yes.
raised here, and developed some experience with innovation and business, there would have been opportunities to take your ideas and go elsewhere, travel, launch a business somewhere. But somehow you're still here on the Gold Coast, and you're building lots more innovation and reinvesting almost your time. And is there something that's driving that, or have you gone overseas and seen the options
We've
and you've
sort
come
of
back?
People say, oh, why don't you go overseas? You'll make so much money. Well, it's not that easy. You need to know, you need to trust people to go overseas, and you need to know their laws, obviously, their customs. I got married fairly young, so family comes first for me. All my family is here. Um, yeah, and my family is very close, obviously. So were there really opportunities to go overseas? I've travelled a lot, and I have family all over the world, but I don't think, for me, there's nowhere better than the Gold Coast, and I think you probably think that too.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I've got my journey as well. It's been 4 years living on the Gold Coast, 10 years before that in Sydney, and then there was a decision of moving from the place I was born and raised, Canada, to here for reasons, and yeah, it's just interesting to see how, where these ideas come from and where they can grow, and it's an opportunity, because people might say in Australia there's not as obvious of an innovation path versus, say, in the U.S. Or major cities, Toronto, New York, San Francisco. But here you've got the lifestyle first.
Yes.
You get a lot of happy people, and those people really, I don't know, I think with that there's some energy that comes with that, and it's an interesting little mix that we're kind of experimenting with. Do you feel that? Like, having been to other major cities and innovation hubs, do you feel like lifestyle is a positive thing here?
Oh, yeah.
When mixed with
definitely.
business, though?
Definitely. Australians, we work hard and we play hard. I think that's, in every city you have different types of personalities. But generally in the business industry, you work hard and you play hard here. So it is definitely a lifestyle, but I think we have a lot of creativity here. And it's unfortunate when we lose a lot of people to overseas, because, because of different things here, we can't sustain a lot of you grow to a certain stage and then a lot of the investment might come from overseas, so then you have to sort of go overseas, or there just isn't the funding here to support you. But I think that's slowly changing. Again, people have to understand that Australia is not we're a small country, we're 25 million people, that fits into one city in China or even, Korea or wherever. We're not a big country, so we need to be international. And if you speak to nearly every young Australian, most of them have gone overseas, which is a testament to how diverse we are here. Mm-hmm. Or they either come from overseas, or they've travelled, and explored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely, you get a lot of, I think they call it a gap year, where it's like on purpose, culturally accepted. You go and travel elsewhere, and then you come back and maybe settle into your career plans and get going. But yeah, I think the cultural aspect is interesting to see. Is it very variable, where it's not just homogenous and everyone has the same point of view? I have a fairly diverse society here.
Very diverse,
right?
Very diverse. Even on the Gold Coast, we have over 200 different communities from all over the world. So it's not visually, you wouldn't think that when you come here, but yeah, there are a lot of communities. Yeah,
and I think the influence about what, I guess, the skills that people are bringing to the table, and it's got to start somewhere. So it's nice to see there are some innovation hubs and things which are shaping up, and maybe funding comes into that as well. You've got some experience with that, right? In terms of that, can you tell us a bit about what you've been involved with?
So with the Gold Coast Innovation Hub, I became a director on the board of directors this year. And our focus, for when we first started, it was to unite entrepreneurs on the Gold Coast, which is the number one thing. And then number two was to grow with events. And number 3 was to go international, which we've gone just recently. 3 weeks ago, we had a online event with Go Global World, which has ambassadors in 32 different countries. And we did a online event, and I had speakers from Canberra, Department of Home Affairs. So Australia has new entrepreneur visas that are basically a fast track to permanent residency, and Trade Investment Queensland, which helps businesses that want to migrate here or set up, head offices here or whatever in Australia. So I had them speak to an international crowd, which was pretty exciting. I think we had about 300 people watching from around the world. And so that's really exciting, starting to open. Last night I spoke to someone from Austria, and we're talking about some, doing some collaborative things with biotech possibly. So it's just reaching out. And that, again, is so exciting. And, when I talk about my gin, I think I told you earlier, I don't want to, I want to bring what I do and merge it together. So we're actually launching in a month's time. We're going to have a limited number of gins that are launched onto what we call a blockchain asset tracker. So every gin in that 200 will have a QR code, and anyone who buys that can go anywhere in the world, and if they scan that code, it'll tell them that it's made on the Gold Coast, it's authentic. And this came about by, overseas there are a lot of fake wines and alcohols and whatever. There's a lot of fake everything, fake meat, fake everything. But with this technology, you can actually authenticate to say where it's come from, which ship it was put on, which, where it was made, where the ingredients came from. You can put all that information on there, and that information is locked and sealed, and you can't change it unless you add more information to it. So that's really exciting to be part of that.
That's fantastic. Is that, to be honest, that's the first time I've heard of that.
I think we're a world first.
Packaging and bundling in a way. Is it, was someone propose that to you?
Yes.
And you decided that's right for us?
Yeah. So I have a friend, he's a professor, Warwick Powell. He's started Beef Ledger. Beef Ledger does that with Australian beef, sold all over the world, China, South Africa, South America. And they want to make sure that the beef they sell, because it's a premium product, is actually Australian beef and not from somewhere else. And so they have this asset tracker, and we were talking. He's going, let's do that with the gin. And I'm going, yeah, well, why not? Let's try it and see how it goes and see how people accept it, hopefully. And, so that's something we can do now, but in 5-10 years' time, when we launch overseas, then we already have that in place. So again, planning is really important. You can do something now, and you might not think it's worth it now, but it will help you down the track. Yeah.
Definitely love that. I heard you mention about some expansion plans there. So you're already thinking. You said 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Bring this over, make it available overseas. Is that right?
Yeah, something. Well,
give or take.
You never know. So basically, right now we've just started. It's 4 weeks since the launch, and we've got into different stores. But there's so many things I want to create with it. Never stop creating. That's what I say. Just never stop creating. There's so many things you can do with something, and if you think you can't, well, just change your mentality, because you can if you're willing to put in the hard yards, I think. And there are people there to help you, so don't be afraid. There are always and if you fail, well, then learn from it. Learn from it, and you might want to do the same sort of thing, but probably not as ambitious, or you might want to do it differently, or you might find something else completely different to take you on a different path. But, life is short. Give it a go.
Oh, there we go. The Aussie saying, I love it. Give it a go.
Give it a go.
Have a go. There's a really important point there that you mentioned. I mean, you're fairly fresh, 4 weeks into this milestone, and I just wanted to capture the mindset. Like, how are you feeling having done that?
Exhausted.
Really?
No, it's exciting, but it's very tiring. And also, when you're working with your partner, there are going to be times where you know, you have an idea, the other person has an idea. You might be clashing, but that is normal, I think. Certainly normal for us. But you've got to get your ideas across. You've got to communicate. Yeah, so
So is it
again, there are going to be struggles, but that's normal.
so you've got the added, I guess, benefit, but also pressure of it's a
Yes.
family-run operation, right? And is it equal time invested? So like 50-50, both putting as much time as possible, or has one person got more to put in?
I would say my husband puts a lot more work into the gin than me. I do the marketing side, but I also have other projects, obviously, with the Innovation Hub and other things I do. So definitely every day you have to sit and going to say, what happened today? Where are we at with this? Again, communication is so important. And again, we're not always going to be on the same page, but you just have to get through that.
Okay. So just to recap the opportunity that came to be, so it's really utilizing some existing industry experience that your partner had to perhaps work on a product that you had a bit of a passion for, and it came to be. And that's really the product. That's why, gin, because it's possibly on trend, and there's a demand for it. I would say also there is a point where you get feedback saying, "Oh, you're launching a product that's alcohol." Is there a judgment there?
We've always been in the alcohol industry. So our gin is only 40% alcohol. A lot of gins are higher. 40% is good for us. But you don't drink, you don't enjoy your alcohol. That's what I say. Don't drink to get drunk. Enjoy it. If you find something that you like, whether it be wine, whether it be whiskey, whether it be gin, enjoy it. Get your glass, a nice glass, put lots of ice, gin, tonic, and also get a tonic that is a premium tonic. It depends on your taste, but for us, we recommend a premium tonic, not a commercial tonic, because you want the taste of the gin to come through. You don't want the taste of sugar to come through. So get your ice, your lime, whatever, a nice straw. Sit somewhere beautiful by the water, and slowly drink. Chat with a friend. It's not there to be sculled. Or, it's there to enjoy. So enjoy the experience.
Wonderful. I think there's some gins out there that have launched in the last, say, 5 years. It's really helped boost, I think, the visibility of gin, and I can't say that I followed it closely, but you hear of celebrities introducing a certain brand and so forth. Do you think those originate from the celebrity, or is that just a bit of a marketing play there to sell bottles of gin?
Oh, you know what? I think these celebrities, they're taking something that they love. I would imagine that they would why would you produce something that you didn't love? Because they're putting time and effort and money into it. So it's something that they love. And they're producing something, hopefully, that, their people that follow them will also like. I mean, they're not going to produce something terrible because the people won't buy it. People are discerning, and they want to have nice things that they're happy with. They're not going to buy it just because it's a movie star's gin, or they might try it for the first time. But I think it's a genuine thing. I don't know.
I think they're brands in themselves, right? So they're not going to. It becomes a big machine where they're not going to risk an inferior product. So it's
right.
probably properly vetted. Yeah. They probably have agencies and managers and levels of profit
Look good
taking.
on them, really, because why not? Again, life is short.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, you don't see that as competition. Yours is quite it's really a product with a story. Bundled in, and then you've got the asset tracker. That's fantastic.
People think there should never be just one of anything. I think that you should be able to have a choice. I mean, the movie star's gin or my gin or someone else's gin. Everyone has different tastes. Number one, and you should have that choice. And you might have my gin one night, and you might have another gin another night. That's perfectly fine. And also, I must say that you have to pairing your alcohol with food is also important. Like our gin is a fresh, fruity gin, so it goes well with nice fresh salads and fresh food and whatever. So I think that's important because your taste buds, you'll enjoy it more if you have the right food with it.
Food is a nice topic. Everyone always
Yeah.
interested to hear what people.
It's really interesting because you can have, a certain wine, say for example, and you have it with an entree, or you have it with a savoury meal, or you have it with sweet, and the taste is completely different. It changes. So experiment and have fun with it.
Is there a forum for that? I know they have wine tasting in their sort of palate education. I think that kind of thing.
My husband is much better than that.
Does that exist in the spirit world? Liquor?
Yeah, absolutely. And we will probably in the future do some. I think we are actually in the next February doing a pairing with food and our gin. But again, if you want, with spicy food, you want an alcohol that sort of that will not overtake that. If you have, a light fresh food, then you want a nice light tasting, fruity sort of whatever it is, wine or whatever.
Wonderful.
Dessert, you'd have a sweet dessert.
I think that's on the topic of gin. I'm sure there's many experts out there. So
so ours is not a dry gin. It's not like a Gordon's dry gin. It's you can, as soon as you open it, you can smell it. Would you like to smell it?
Yes. Let's have a little.
So this is a fresh bottle.
This is actually this fits in well with a series that we'll be releasing called Cocktails and Microphones. We'll have a little mixing.
I think I might have to get you to open it.
And let's see if we can pass that
A
up.
bit tough for me. So it's just a pop top.
Okay, it's a nice bottle, and we'll make sure we can get the
So
sound effect for everyone listening at home.
It's a wooden top.
All right, so we're just going to get a little aroma.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not the classic dry, but more.
Yeah. And so you don't get a
Sweet.
big shot of alcohol smell. It's a much softer smell.
Yeah.
Because some of the times you can open something, smell it, and you go, oh, it's gone right up your nostrils.
Keep that in view here.
This one's a nice
Make sure to get you that bottle back.
soft.
Beautiful aroma. I mean, I'm not a huge connoisseur on lots of different spirits, but definitely it's got feels like almost like can I say citrus? Is there some element of?
Well, the
Is that the
Kakadu
sweetness?
plum.
Kakadu plum.
Yeah.
Beautiful. No, I love the product and I love the story. I think that's kind of really wanted to bring out those elements of a starting point, a couple of those milestones that got you to so far, and how you were feeling. That's the big thing. I think people mindset and how do you know if you're pushing hard enough or not hard enough, or should you be doing something different? And it's just those paths that you can take along the way.
I think it's important to basically talk to your customers. It's really talk to people trying your stuff, whatever it is. Even if it's an app, we'll speak to the people that are trying your app. If it's alcohol, obviously speak to the people that are drinking your alcohol. Whatever it is, even if it's biomedical, speak to the people that are using your product and get feedback. Feedback's really important.
Definitely. That's best practices. We definitely want to be, one of the things we endorse is evaluating your path to market, or, that sounds a bit technical, but just what's it going to take for you to get to where you need to be, and can you cut down the steps, or just really be thinking through the critical path of, yes, if we do that well, that'll bring us to the next step, and so on. Obviously, there's the learnings along the way, bumps in the road, but is that your experience? Is it fairly fast-tracked?
Also, I find when I talk to people, they're going, how did you get that person to, how did you speak to that person? But don't be afraid to Don't be afraid to go and ask for help, number one. Don't be afraid to reach out to people that you think you can't reach out to, because generally people will help you. Don't be afraid to come up with ideas that you think are impossible, because sometimes they are possible. Network. I don't like the word networking, but you kind of have to network. But for me, don't network for the sake of networking. Find the people that are on the same thought path as you, and then they'll become friends because you're on the same journey. You have the same way of thinking. They'll end up helping you, or you'll end up helping them. And it again, going back to when I said about the launch, it was like a family affair. That's exactly the kind of thing that I want. I want it to feel like we're a family, that we're working together. That I don't care if you're the chairman of whatever, you're still just a person, and you could possibly become a friend or a mentor, but have the just try to reach out. And if they don't return your call or your email, whatever, well, that's all right too, but at least you tried.
Nice. And would you say that generally represents how it is in Australia? Like, people are friendly in that space, so you would reach out to someone and generally it's courtesy, they could give you the reply back?
I think so.
I think so too.
I think that's how it's been for me. I know a lot of my friends have going, well, how do you know that person? I'm going, well, I just went up and said hello. And sometimes that's all it takes. You see someone at an event and you go, oh, that's a really interesting person. Or it could be the speaker. You go to an event and the speaker is speaking and that's a really interesting topic, and you go up and say hello and start talking, and then you might, you might develop a relationship. But that's how it starts. So honestly, don't be afraid to go up and say hello to people.
That's great.
Or reach out.
Yeah.
Over LinkedIn.
I was going to mention, we chatted a bit before about your the tools you use, whether it's on Facebook but you mentioned LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn's great for business.
Yeah. And is it like a purposeful, I'm going to go seek people out, or is it more of a casual browsing and you just stumble on profiles?
I don't seek people out on anything really, but I find for me on LinkedIn, I find the articles and the conversations more than anything really interesting. They really interest me, and you can add your point of view without you just have the opportunity to add your point of view on LinkedIn on topics that are vast and global. Even it can be local, but there's so much scope on LinkedIn, I find personally. Other people might find it different. But if you have a business, if you're going to launch a business, I would get onto LinkedIn straight away. At least have a profile. And if someone's looking for someone similar to what you're doing, and then at least you're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good tip, actually. And maybe we can do a deep dive a bit later. That's just a note for myself to perhaps LinkedIn. Because I do feel it depends on the generation. Maybe people that are established in their career, it's kind of the norm to have LinkedIn. Probably somebody up and coming.
Oh, absolutely.
They're probably pursuing Instagram like mad, whereas there might be a golden opportunity if they just did LinkedIn casually to network, like you said, not for the sake of it, but
just to connect with people, and you'll see people on there, and because it shows up when you like something. So say one of my friends likes something, and it's a really, really interesting article, and even though you don't know that person that's written the article, you can comment on it. And so I find LinkedIn fascinating.
It's a good reminder. These platforms have been around for ages, but they're going to go through waves of, everyone's there and, the opportunities here. But I feel like it's just been a quiet achiever, and I don't hear people banging on. But there's more, especially with live streaming. We do a lot of live stream support, and more and more people it's that expertise and just get out there and talk about things. That's wonderful. I was going to ask about just the technology world. You seem like you've got across a lot of this stuff. Like, where do you think we're headed in the world in technology? Do you follow all these things about like algorithms and automation and AI and things like that? Does that enter in your world of thinking, or is that just sort of another part of another industry and another.
No, absolutely. I think the future is, well, let's have a look at your phone. So 10 years ago, we had UBD maps, we had torches, we had a whole myriad of things, and now it's all on your phone, pretty much all on your phone. So that's in the last 10 years. Imagine what's going to happen in the next in the next 20. Things are moving so fast because there's so much in each country. People are really focusing on the next thing, and it's basically we are being forced to because we have so many global problems. You know, we're having problems with climate, number one. We're having problems with water, with homelessness, with famine, etc. So there's so many people in the world actually working on solutions, on medicine. So when you talk about, say, 3D printing, people think, 3D printing is just like, making a product. But 3D printing now, you're using stem cells and creating organs and, creating blood vessels and etc. When you're talking about medicine, it's going to become more personalized because you have all these medicines now that are general. So everyone takes the same thing, but people have different reactions to it. So, in the future, you'll be able to actually test, say, your blood or your urine or whatever, and find out what medication suits you and match it. We've had, for the last few years, we've got this, love matching service like eHarmony or whatever. Well, now there'll be a medical matching service, I think, in the future. And we talked a little bit about telehealth before. For, robotics, people are scared to death of robotics, that they're going to take over jobs. But for me, I think the robots are going to take jobs that are hard manual labour anyway, and they're probably dangerous. So there's a new scope. We don't know in the future. I think there's going to be a whole heap of jobs that we've never heard of. When the steam train or the steam engine was invented, they thought, in the Industrial Revolution, they thought, oh, no one's going to have any jobs. Well, that was 100 years ago, and we're still going along. Things will adapt. It's not going to be easy. Things will adapt. So what have I got? Biomedical, AI. So AI, again, think about AI. I don't think about AI as, Terminator taking over the world. I think of AI as just a giant encyclopedia. So basically, it's just getting all the information. So if you have a disease or something wrong with you, and you go to a doctor, a specialist, he has a certain amount of knowledge about that, whatever part of your body that is. But imagine if he can go to his program and then have access to research from all over the world. So now you've got, say, 200 cases that you have knowledge of, and then it's now 200,000 cases that you now have knowledge of, and you can use that to treat or diagnose or whatever. And then when it comes back to robotics, you can go and first of all, you can 3D visually create what's wrong with you in the body, and make a 3D picture of it and find out exactly, say it's a cancer in a spot that's not easily accessible. And then a doctor can actually practice virtually with, augmented reality, so augmented reality is to have an image and then go in and, like a video game almost, go in and practice that operation again and again and again until you get it right before you actually touch the person. And so you've actually mastered it before you've gone in and cut up this person. Or you might have found different ways to go in where it's not as invasive. For example, the other day, things that excite me. So the silliest things excite me. I was watching a program the other day about bionic eyes. Bionic eyes. They've been researching this for the last 10 years, and it's really, really hard because the optic nerve and everything is a very, very delicate organ. And they were coming up with ideas to put implants in the brain and behind the eye and whatever. But because the body reacts to anything that you put in the body, it starts to scar and degrade and whatever. And there was an Australian doctor that actually said, well, why don't we just put in a stent with electrodes on it through the blood vessels, so you don't even have to cut yourself open. It's just a little nick, and then you go through the blood vessels up into the brain behind the eye, and you've got all the electronics. And they said, well, we've never even thought of that before. So now they're using that, a little stent, a tiny little stent that goes through your blood vessels that are stopped in your blood vessels in your brain, that connects with electrodes for a robotic eye, so that people can see again, which I find that fascinating. I've that sort of thing I've always loved since I was a child. I've loved that sort of thing. It's that, that the brain can come up with an idea and then come up, and the idea becomes reality, and then you're actually helping someone, and it's futuristic, but it's not, because it's happening now. Yeah.
Those are huge breakthroughs. And you mentioned an Australian-based innovation.
Yeah.
Which is even more. So yeah, there's a whole global movement, which you mentioned, and then there'll be some of which Australians are, fast tracking on, and they're leading the edge on.
Yeah.
And others, there's lots of driving forces to this, but it's interesting to see how we can play a part, and then how, what it takes to make those things happen. There's government programs and all sorts of things. So ultimately, yeah, it's just it'll be interesting to see where Australia ends up as a contributor, because there'll be a history of innovations that the country's introduced, and even in software, there's
Atlassian.
I have a hard time pronouncing that, but the software side of things, some great products, biomedical. The universities are really well established, some great research going on. So yeah, we have to just find a forum to share all that and make sure it's visible. I mean, ultimately,
it's so exciting.
It's just staying plugged into it. And hearing you talk through those innovations, are you particularly close with those based on your network, or is it personal interest? Or
basically, 4 years ago, I was invited to be a part of an executive program at Singularity University in NASA Ames Research Park, which is outside of San Francisco near Palo Alto. And so I applied because my friend nominated me. He was an ambassador for Singularity University, and he nominated me because I'm right into this science and etc. And because there weren't many females that actually applied, I thought, because there's a long waiting list to go. There's a limited number of people. I actually got accepted straight away. So I went over, and you've got lecturers that are from NASA, lecturers that are, the head of AI at Google. You've got Stanford University lecturers and doctors. You've got lecturers on cybersecurity that work for the NSA, the National Security Agency in the States. You've got these amazing people. The cohort was people from all over the world. There was 100 different people. And you had chairmen of Time Out magazine, the chairman of Time Out magazine. You had the man from Switzerland that first started managed funds. You had the grandson of the man who started Lee Kung-Kee Sources, which isn't just sources, because they actually have a whole 3 different arms of their company, which is huge. And I had bankers from Scotland, bankers from America, farmers, and I'm talking about massive international industry groups from South America, from the Netherlands. There was the first person I met, whom I actually didn't know what his job was until the end, but he was a general from the Netherlands. So you've got all these people, and then you've got me, who is from the Gold Coast. It's a long flight. I got there late. I was jet lagged. I basically turned up at the back of the room when they were doing the introductions, wearing sneakers, the same shirt I've been wearing for over 24 hours, hair's a mess, and they're doing introduction games as you do at these events. and they're going, that person down the back who's just arrived, come up here. And I'm going, oh, okay, hello, I'm from Australia. And all of a sudden I'm doing these, these introduction games and dancing on a big stage. So that was really, really interesting. So coming back from that, I thought, well, how can I apply that stuff here? And I was really fortunate to, hear of the Innovation Hub, and eventually now that I'm one of the directors, which is really exciting.
That's fantastic. I mean, that is something for everyone to look up if they're not familiar with Singular University.
Yeah, so they're not doing the courses at the moment because of COVID, obviously, but they're doing a lot of online stuff. So I recommend going on and checking some of the online stuff for whatever you're interested in.
That's wonderful. With all of that exposure to innovation, and do you find you, as an entrepreneur, do you get tempted to go in any particular direction? Like, is there a next project that you're just gravitating towards, saying, oh, like I love the biomedical, could we do something there?
Always. There's never enough time in the day. There's always something you could do, and there's seriously not enough time in the day. But I get it's for me it's a passion. It's for a lot of my friends aren't into science fiction, but I absolutely love science fiction because it's the idea that someone came up with something completely new fascinates me, and that we can solve these major problems. In the not too distant future, I think we'll be able to hopefully be able to feed everyone in the world. There's still a whole is it a quarter or a fifth of the world that don't have enough food to eat? That's just not right in this day and age. But there are people working on how we can feed all these people, and just even. And I love when it comes down to simple ideas. For example, one of my favorite things, innovations in the whole wide world, is so simple, and it's. Do you remember when you were a kid, you had a toy and you had a pull string, and it used to either dance or move or sing?
Definitely.
So this, I think it was just a couple of young guys. They invented a light for communities in third world or refugee camps, and the light was just, you hang it from the ceiling, you fill up a bag with sand or rocks, and you lift it up, and as it slowly comes down, the cogs keep the light on, and so there's no batteries, there's no electricity. It's slowly coming down, and as it comes down, it turns the cogs, and the light is working. So you've got kids now that can actually read and do their homework with this little invention that uses rocks and a bag of rocks, a cable, and a light bulb, which I love. I'm going, that's fantastic.
It's amazing. So cool. Yeah, I mean, that's and it's, I guess, innovations at every level, right? You got the kids that are being encouraged to think differently. You got educators, people that have done years and years of study and PhD and beyond. And I think that's, it'd be interesting to see how people spend their lives and what role they play. Because a lot of people they hear about the innovations, but they just think, oh, I'm not sure how to play a part. Or
I'd really love to. When I applied for Singularity Universities, one of my things that I said was I want to bring science and innovation to mainstream. I'd like everyone to talk about what's happening in the world rather than science, too hard, I'm not going to think about it, because it's a part of everyday life. It is. It's everything you do now, everything you see now, everything you touch now is, originally from someone's idea. It's an innovation. Look at the paperclip.
That's great. Look, that's been really a great overview of some of the areas that you've touched on. There was one question I had jotted down. I just want to make sure I didn't forget it. But you mentioned the Innovation Hub and your own startup, basically, which is now well underway. I think a lot of the initial hurdle that people have relates to funding. It's like either they believe that they need more money than they maybe do, or they actually do have the need for some startup money. Did that play a part in your company that you started, in terms of, did there need to be some savings,
Yeah.
minimum level, just so you could make get the essentials happening?
Yeah, so obviously you need save up. Really, do whatever it takes and save up and get your little nest egg. And you don't need to go too big too soon. People are afraid that they need millions and millions of dollars to do something. Again, I think we touched on before, it's so much easier now to build your own website because it's just click and drag, and your proof of concept can just be a mock up. Like it really can be. You can just make it out of cardboard and show someone and say, what do you think of this idea? And then you might get someone else that might become your partner or an investor or whatever. And then, but don't be discouraged. And it might not happen right now, but it could happen in the future. For us, it was just a good time for it to happen. The right people. Again, your partners, you need to be able to judge the people you're going to work with. You need to be able to trust them. And again, have the same passion, I think is important. And we met basically master distillers that had this passion. And they're actually very happy for us to do really well. It helps them, it helps us. We don't want to compete with them, but we're going to help each other grow. But yeah, save up. I mean, that's not a new thing, right? It's people put so much money on credit cards these days. They forget that only a few years ago we had lay-by, where you basically paid something off over a couple of months, and each week you put money in, but that was your own money. Credit is good for certain things because if it's for business, the interest is tax deductible, etc. Expense tax deductible. But don't forget that you can just save up a little bit each week and get your goals. I think the credit card culture is it's a bit damaging for young ones these days because they think they can have anything without paying for it eventually, or they don't think about how they're going to pay for it eventually. But go old school, save up, put $100 away each week for something, and build it up and start with those things like building a website that's not that hard, or start by getting your networks in place before you actually build whatever it is you're going to build, or start playing with concepts and ideas of what it's going to look like. It doesn't cost anything to have a piece of paper and a pen. You know what I mean? Make it out of Lego. You've got all these tools now. You can go, well, it might look like this, and play with it until you get to a point where you can do something. But don't just forget about it and say it's too hard.
That's good. Yeah, and I think that, for people wondering specific amounts, I mean, we started our company with $10,000 was an amount that, the reason it was $10,000, so we think, how long can we go without any customers or money to support whatever you need to pay for in life? So it'll be different for everyone. But if you can keep your costs low, then you might need less, or, if there's some investment, just know what that is, and like you were saying, Debbie, just maybe don't do overkill. Just
don't overextend.
Get that minimum viable product, whatever it is, to do the demonstration, and then worry about the next step about making it perfect and making it final.
But also, you can get your minimum viable MVP, but be excited about it. When you present that, when you pitch that idea, be excited about it. A lot of people are scared of speaking in front of people, and that's, fair enough. But go practice, join Toastmasters or practice on other people. And when you speak, don't be afraid to say the wrong thing. I say the wrong thing all the time, but be excited about what you're talking about.
That's great advice. And, again, there's a whole ecosystem around startup culture and everything. So get out there, guys, and have a look at it if you haven't already pursued this and follow that. Some good advice out there. But your practical experience with seeing companies take shape and starting and going. Have you observed the investment picture where people are investing in companies? Would you recommend that's a healthy path to go down, or is the path more of independence these days, where you could say, look, if you can maintain control and bootstrap everything, you maybe are more happier in the end because you have less stress?
I would say investment is good, and we have a lot of angel investors that invest small amounts, which is good because they will become mentors. Look at your structure, so get advice on your business structure. You don't want to give everything away. You need to keep some control. So your structure is very, very important. For us, we're doing it ourselves, but I know that when we will get to a point, or I've planned for, we will get to a point where we will need investment, especially when we want to build a lot of things. But look at your structure. Get legal advice. Get advice from your accountant. If your accountant doesn't do this sort of thing, then find other people that do. But yeah, really look at your structure. Don't give anything away. Make sure you get legal advice. And then again, like at the hub, we have mentors that can give some legal advice to a point, free. And do your research. Read a lot. Listen to podcasts. Listen and speak to people that have already been on the journey. And get pull people in. Like if you've got an idea, well, get a group of friends together, get strangers off the street, whoever, to listen to your idea and tell you that's a terrible idea, that's a good idea, whatever. And if they tell you it's a terrible idea, well, maybe you need to modify it. Or if they say, yeah, that's a great idea, but don't let that get to your head, number one, because you're gonna struggle. Well, not struggle, but you're gonna have to put in the hard yards. But if if lots of people say that's a great idea, take that and roll with it.
That's great. You mentioned that earlier about taking feedback, and the feedback's probably the best value that you can take earlier on. You don't get so distracted with investment money. And
don't think you know everything. That's the most important thing. Don't think you know everything, because you definitely don't. Even if you've been in the industry for a million years, you are always learning, and things are constantly changing. So,
excellent. That's good.
Be humble.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that perspective. That's really, really fresh. I really like that. We've definitely spent some time together. Thank you very much. I just wanted to capture yourself personally, just a quick, about how you're spending your day, and maybe things that are outside of work that are important to you, just to help people get the context of, you're
Who am I?
You're an innovator. You're the businesswoman.
Very busy.
You're educated and pursuing things. Like in the community, do you have things that you do on the weekend and a bit of a break?
Well, I'm also involved with a lot of community groups, and over this COVID time, a lot of people have struggled. So we've put a group together to try and help them. But as for my general day and week, I have a group of mums that I met through when the kids went to school, and I try very hard to make sure that we catch up at least once a week for that downtime to talk about anything. It's really important for your mental health, I think, to just have a coffee with friends and talk to people. It's sometimes it's hard to catch up with everyone, but individually it's hard to catch up with everyone. But at least if you can have an hour a week where you're catching up and finding out what's happening. And the other day I was actually quite upset because a couple of my friends, because I hadn't been to coffee for a couple of weeks, a couple of my friends had gone through some things, and I'm going, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, and I'm so out of the loop, and I wasn't there for you. And they're going, oh no. But I think it's really, really, really important to have that connections with friends and to create new ones. Again, life is short.
It's beautiful. That's fantastic. Debby Lo-Dean, everybody, thank you very much. Do you just want to tell us a bit about how we can follow your journey from here, whether it's website, Facebook, anything like that?
We have Paradise. It's actually Paradise Distillers, because we want to eventually, have our gin, rum, vodka, etc. So it's Paradise Distillers on Facebook. Same again on Instagram. LinkedIn, I have personal Debby Lo-Dean on LinkedIn. I haven't created a Paradise Distillers account there yet, but yeah, I think Instagram is good for visual, Facebook is good for visual, and I want to share those stories. Yeah.
Beautiful. And we're some of the lucky ones that get to see it nice and early. So appreciate you sharing that. So, guys, thank you very much. And yeah, this is the Aussie Ambitions podcast. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.